Today on Locked On Rockies, I used the old phone, I put out the old Twitter signal, and you Rockies fans gave us a couple of questions we're going to answer today on the Locked On Rockies podcast, including bench players, possible free agent targets, and we got to talk a little bit about some of the injury news coming out of camp as well. All that and more on today's episode of Locked On Rockies.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 17th day of March in the year 2023, one day closer to opening day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, well, you are in the right spot, because that's what we do around here, is talk about the Colorado Rockies each and every single day here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. You can find us free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. You can also find us streaming live on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the live chat and have your questions answered live on the show. Your subscription to YouTube, your 5-star review helps this show grow. I am your Rockies fan extraordinaire, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. We asked for Rockies questions from Twitter. We got a couple, and we're going to talk about that today on the Locked On Rockies podcast. We also have to take a look at some of the news that has come out of camp about some potential back injuries or lingering stuff that we'll have to look at for Charlie Blackmon and Cron. We'll discuss that as well. Let's dive into the first question from Twitter here. But before we do that, I got to tell you that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook is the sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. Make every moment more when you visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn. First question here from Renee Descartes. If you're not subscribed to the Rockies Pitch newsletter, then what are you doing? You're missing out. It's wonderful. It's a great way to get Rockies information. And we got a question here from Renee that asks, which players do you see making the Rockies bench this season? And the bench is going to be interesting, especially as one thing that we talked about there, Cron, a little bit of back issues, and Charlie Blackmon. So the Rockies are going to need to use the depth, especially in the wake of the injuries that we've already seen the Rockies suffer. I think first things first, I think Mike Moustakas is going to be pretty much a lock to make this team at this point. I know he's been swinging a pretty decent bat down there in spring. I think with his major league experience, with him being someone that has a history of being able to hit the ball, he's going to be at the top of the list of someone the Rockies can use from the bench, and especially because he can fill in at first and play DH and do a couple of things where he can fill in here and there. And there's been a lot of talk here, a player we haven't talked a ton about, and it's kind of exactly leads into the story and the thought process and the ideas of Alan Trejo. Alan Trejo has been starting for Mexico the entire World Baseball Classic. He's been having an impact, and you listen to the commentators and other look, and they say that Trejo deserves to be a starter for a team. So the Rockies have Alan Trejo waiting there, who will certainly make the team, but they're going to have to decide what they want to do with Alan Trejo and how much playing time is he really going to get. Now that we hear from Danielle Allentuck over here on her Rockies Predictions 2.0 over there on the Colorado Springs Gazette. She writes this about Elehuris Montero. The Rockies are impressed with Montero's defensive progress and intend to give him a shot at third. So he, they're probably saying Montero's going to get the start there. And if Tovar is going to be the starting shortstop, where are you going to play Alan Trejo? Can Alan Trejo maybe, I don't see Alan Trejo necessarily going out into the outfield, but off of the bench, he certainly will be there. He certainly will be someone that the Rockies will be able to use across the infield when they're giving someone a break, when it's an off day for someone. You're going to see a lot of Alan Trejo, and you're going to see even more of Alan Trejo if Tovar struggles a bit. The question remains of what Trejo's impact will be on a day-to-day basis is going to be what Tovar ends up doing. We're not trying to root anything against Tovar, but the Rockies at least can feel confident in going to Alan Trejo and someone that is major league ready for the Colorado Rockies and has been on the team. Alan Trejo was up with the team and actually has shown really some flashes of strong stuff. I mean, there's a little bit of Alan Trejo that reminds you a bit of Jonathan Daza if Trejo's given more opportunity here in this part of the season or at any point in this year, and he's able to take advantage of it like Jonathan Daza has. It's a really interesting question for the Rockies and how they want to do what they want to do with Alan Trejo. Is he going to be someone that would be playing more? Would he be someone that could be potentially traded? What type of factor will that be? But I agree with you, Luxace. The two players I think are absolute locks, dynamite locks. Alan Trejo and Mike Moustakas. They make a ton of sense for this Rockies roster. At least right now, we had the whole episode kind of sounding the alarms over the Mike Moustakas trade, but he is going to be someone that will be a good ad, a good bench ad, I think, at least in the right idea, especially with the issues that CJ Cron is facing, with now the injury to Brendan Rodgers and things of that nature. So a vet backup on the corners where you're probably going to have young guys filling in. If CJ Cron isn't going to be able to, if the back spasms and lingering back issues that he's facing are an issue, you're gonna need Mike Moustakas to play first base. And if again with CJ Cron struggling, if he can't stay healthy with the back, that also opens the door again for Michael Toglia. I don't think Toglia is going to make the opening day roster. I think it might be an interesting. It might be tough for him. He would probably be primarily used in the outfield, but I think the Rockies might be a little bit more convinced to go with say Nolan Jones. Danielle Allentuck is saying Harold Castro is a good option, especially because of his versatility. So we'll see what type of impact that has. But the door opens up for a lot of Montero, because you could play Montero at first base as well. You could play Alan Trejo at third, and that there's another thing. So to fill in, another way to fill in for CJ Cron. And Luxace also points out Chris Bryant had a store back again. The one thing, at least with Chris Bryant, he's back in the lineup today. I think yesterday's day off was extra careful because of the sore back for Chris Bryant the other day. But what is going on with these back injuries? But let's dive into some more questions and more bench players for the Rockies here coming up in segment number 2. But before we do that, you've always wanted to run the show. I know you have, folks. You wanted to, how you think you could bring a team like the Rockies success. Well, now's your chance to show off your GM prowess with our new partner and sponsor of today's episode, the mobile game Ultimate Baseball GM. And if you've dreamed of becoming an MLB GM and managing your professional baseball franchise, your dream has come true, and this game is definitely for you. And best part about it, it's mobile. It's on the go. Fits right on the phone, right in your pocket. You can take it wherever you go, and you don't even need to be connected online. It is an offline. It's playable offline, so you can enjoy it wherever you like. You can hire the right coaches and staff, scout and draft the right players, navigate your franchise through free agency, all the ups and downs of the season, and get that elusive championship ring. all in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Baseball GM is completely free and playable offline. Like I said, playable offline, free. You'll love that. And Locked On Rockies listeners get 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo Locked On in the game store. So make sure to check it out. To download the game, just visit probaseballgm.com. That's probaseballgm.com. You can scan the code here on the screen as well, or look it up in the App Store. probaseballgm.com for the Ultimate Baseball GM game. Start your dynasty today. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. I thank you for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. And I thank Lux Ace for hanging out in the live chat here as well. And if you are subscribed to the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, you'll know when we go live and you can be part of the show just like Lux is. And folks, if you need more Locked On podcast action, well, guess what? The Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast has you covered for your fantasy baseball needs. And if you want to stay up to date with everything going on in Colorado sports, the Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Buffs, all available for you. Lux, good luck on your journey. It's harder than you think. That's one thing I will say, Lux, about those simulators. Folks, another question here from Twitter comes from Mr. Viejos at GirlDad88. Are the Rockies still in on Profar? I have heard nothing. Absolutely nothing about this since it was reported about a week ago. I haven't heard much rumor. And again, if the Rockies are indeed facing a Charlie Blackmon that can't play, and they're already waiting on Randall Grichuk to get back, they've lost Sean Bouchard, how would the Rockies want to handle more depth? And I think adding another veteran outfielder would be a perfectly reasonable place to go. But in terms of, do I know? No, I mean, I have no idea. I mean, this came out that there was a report of it. There was murmurs of it, but he's just on the radar at the record. And I did do a search of and I looked his name, I looked in the news, and so this is the last update I've seen from this, and it came from Patrick Saunders here a week ago, last Friday. With injuries to outfielders Sean Bouchard and Randall Grichuk, the Rockies are showing renewed interest in signing free agent infielder outfield Jurickson Profar, a source confirmed to the Denver Post. Whether the Rockies can land Profar remains to be seen. Money and the number of the years on the contract could be sticking points. Profar hit 15 home runs and slashed 243, 331, and 391 in 152 games for San Diego last season. And he played for the Netherlands, who is coached by none other than the Rockies' new hitting coach. So that could be an interesting thing, but that's really it. When you look at, when you look at anything else, when you look at news, it's still all from a week ago. So this is someone, again, that a veteran player that can play infield and the outfield, exactly what the Rockies are looking for in terms of depth. And that's sure, if you can do it. I don't think you want to overcommit to him, though. The thing is, Profar might be wanting more years, and how many years are you really trying to give someone when waiting in the wings? When next year, I mean, it should be, is Zach Veen going to be your starting X fielder? I mean, that really should be the question of next year. So how much do you really want to go in on Profar and spend money there, when in reality, you could just stick Tolia out there in right field to fill in for now? And Tolia is a perfect person to have to fill in for both Charlie Blackmon and CJ Cron. I mean, he can play first and he can play right field. And he could DH. I mean, those are all three things that Michael Tolia already does, and someone that needs to get experience at the major league level, as we've talked about all offseason. But I agree with you, Luxace. If it's a 2-year deal, if it's a 2-year deal, and maybe even with an opt-out, or 3-year with an opt-out, I mean, that's not going to be terrible. Especially if he can play good defense, and especially if he's able to play center field. But again, Jonathan Daza has earned his spot. Jonathan Daza has earned the right to be the starting center fielder than anybody, really. I mean, Jonathan Daza can't have his position threatened because of something like Profar, because needing to get a vet in there or whatever, because Profar might be good, but I'm excited and want to see more from Daza this year. So as for, are the Rockies still interested in Profar? I'm sure they are. I mean, Profar fills the need, certainly, for the Rockies and their depth issues. But when you really look at it, at this point, why not? I mean, because there were things brewing, and before some of the injuries and before some of the things that happened with the Rockies, you can maybe make an argument to go a different way. But now with some of these injuries, and now with the holes opening up on your team from spring, why not address them with stuff that you already have, just because you can really see what you have this year? I think, I still think the Rockies are going to be a better team, but these injuries are going to play a factor, especially, if we're going to not see a lot of Cron or Blackmon, if these back issues are going to play a continued factor in their availability, it is going to be that will drastically impact the Colorado Rockies, 100%. But again, the fill-in is already on the team, and the fill-in is one of your prospects that you're feeling really confident about. Lux Ace says, if Charlie can't play for most of the season, I'm going to cry. But just a reminder, we were interested in Gary Sanchez, and looked what happened. Yeah, I mean, it's too early to tell. I mean, and Charlie's a little older. I mean, this is what it's going to be. This is part of the deal. I think they know, and I think this is a reminder for Charlie Blackmon. It's like, this is why you're going to DH more. We can't, this is why you're not going to be running out in right field a bunch. This is not why your job is to stay healthy, to hit for the team. And Leandro says, what's wrong with Charlie? What'd I miss? Charlie Blackmon and CJ Cron have been dealing with lingering back issues in the spring. So there are worries. He was removed last Friday. He was removed again. So stuff to definitely watch, but maybe it's the body getting in shape. Hopefully, I mean, maybe it's gearing up. It's better that they're being taken out and stuff during these spring training games versus middle of the season. But now it's a reminder, though, like we said with Charlie Blackmon, that it's like, dude, we can't have you if your back is an issue, we can't have you playing right field that much. Your job is to stay loose and limber so you can bat 280 with 20 home runs this season. That's what the Rockies need. They can figure out right field. They can. And they can figure out first base. But they need those two players good enough to at least swing the bat. And the nice part with the DH is it allows them to stay in the game and go for there. Leandro, trade for Mookie Betts. Yeah, you know what? Why not? Absolutely. I mean, if we could. Remember how Mookie Betts just ended up on the Dodgers because the Red Sox were like, nah, that guy. Mookie Betts. He's not worth the money. Oh, my goodness, man. I mean, Mookie Betts is the perfect course field player. I mean, literally perfect. Mookie Betts would be an insane Rocky. If he played at Coors Field, Mookie Betts would be nuts. He can play center field. He can play a great center field. He's incredibly gifted on offense. Mookie Betts is one of the best baseball players of our generation. Absolutely. Dude's a blast to watch. Absolutely sucks that he's been on the other side doing damage against the Rockies. Let's see here. One thing I wanted to talk about because Renee Descartes asked a question, the first question of the day, talking about bench players. And there's a few other ones, but I think the main two ones to focus off the bench are going to be Mike Moustakas and Alan Trejo. I think Nolan Jones and Harold Castro, as Danielle Allentuck put in her piece as well, are good calls to build out that. Any player the Rockies have that can be utility, they're probably going to add. But I think those four are going to be are going to make up most of your bench. And then, of course, you're going to have the rotation of Servin and Elias Diaz. There's no change at catcher. It's exactly it. And Mike Moustakas has hit a double to tie the game up. So, again, I think when we originally talked about the Mike Moustakas signing, I think I kind of said it's a bad move. And I did say that as the on Twitter even. I did criticize the move. But now, especially with some of the injuries, and now hearing the Rockies committing to Montero, at least like we said from Danielle Allentuck, or at least embracing that Montero is supposed to be the starter, that's okay. Because Moose can now give CJ Cron off days. Moose can be your DH. Moose can do a lot of things that the Rockies are going to need this, especially to start the season. So a little bit of retract there. So there's one thing from, I'm not going to read all of it because again, I highly suggest that you subscribe to Renee Deckard's Rockies Pitch newsletter. It's really, really great. And I really just want to point out one thing that is alarming from the Rockies spring training here so far. We're going to do that coming up here in segment number 3. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel Sportsbook has got you covered for all the basketball action going on. It's March. What's more synonymous with March than basketball? And there's plenty of action going on. So don't miss out. Check out and download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's America's number one sports book, as I have a number one hiccup there. New customers are going to get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line, point scores, and threes drained. Why not take... Here's what my brother was telling me he was going with this. First half unders in the madness. That's in the madness of all of everything going on. That's what he believes in. So maybe if you like that. Maybe you like that for the NBA. Maybe you like it for college basketball. That is your choice, and you can see it all at FanDuel Sportsbook. At FanDuel.com, get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 at FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Locked on Rockies. Welcome in. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. I was going to say second listen. I mean, hey, if you're your second listen, whatever listen of the day, thank you for making it. And thank you for tuning in. And thank you for checking out the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where we're on the push to 500 subscribers. I'm trying to work on a little giveaway thing too. So no official details yet, but if you help us get closer to 500 subs, that will inspire me to work on that even more. Adrian Ortega's in the live chat and says, Rockies always signing that fallen off first baseman vet at the end of their career. Yeah, and it's worked out. As you mentioned, Morneau and Reynolds were good enough for the Rockies, and Mike Moustakas, I think, could be walking down that same path very easily. I mean, hey, it's a low-stakes team, low-stakes environment right now with the Rockies. It's the perfect place to come and reinvent the career. It's a perfect place to go and swing it. It's a perfect place to demonstrate that you can still swing it. I mean, the thing is, you still have to be effective enough as a hitter. Just because you play at Coors Field, just because you play for the Rockies, doesn't immediately make you incredible on offense. But if you're able to come in and win a Silver Slugger, for example, that's huge. That would be massive, not only for them but the Rockies as well. So I'm all aboard a Moustakas rebound, hopefully. But I can't remember who pointed it out. It might have been Drew Kreisman. I can't remember who said it. But the Moustakas addition's just another one that's about 3 years, 4 years, 5 years too late. So, one thing from Renee Deckard's this is Locked On Rockies. She writes the Rockies Pitch a baseball and fandom newsletter, which I highly suggest that you subscribe to. One thing that she tracks a bunch of things and asks a bunch of questions about spring training and where the Rockies are at. And the first one she asked is the one I was like, not what I wanted to hear. The first question she asks after she took a look at the spring training stats: are the Rockies striking out less? No. Single line, period. The Mets' Mark Vientos has struck out the most with 17, but he's closely followed by Nolan Jones, Michael Toglia, Brian Serven, Brenton Doyle, and Zach Veen. That's a lot of Rockies, all at the top of the list of strikeouts in spring. And yes, those are mostly young guys, but as Renee points out, most concerning here are Jones and Toglia, since they are the closest to being MLB ready, as well as Serven, who's expected to be the Rockies' backup catcher. People striking out a lot is part of the game. But the Rockies can't strike out a ton. They cannot be a team that strikes out as much as they do. It is something that has to be adjusted and worked on this spring. Striking out, you can't on the top strikeout leaderboard of spring have one guy from one team and then the next be all from the same team. Nolan Jones is at 16 and 30 at bats. Michael Toglia 14 and 41 at bats. Brian Serven 13 and 27 at bats, and Brenton Doyle and Zach Veen with 12 in 28 at bats for Doyle and 35 for Veen. So that's not good. Nolan Jones is in second. There might be some other people in there, but if they're actually all followed on the list, when you're looking at the top 5 and 4 out of the 5 most strikeouts of the spring belong to the Rockies, not good. Not good. Not good at all. But yes, it's spring. It's, there are good at bats, especially now. Maybe you strike out, but you had an at bat where you really were watching the pitch and learning something from. Great. But again, one thing to definitely watch as spring goes on and how the start of the year goes is that strikeout number for the Rockies. If it's high, we know what that means. We've definitely seen this team. If they strike, they will. We saw it last year. I think really is the main emphasis I'm trying to make. We know what happens when the Rockies look outmatched from a pitcher and strike out a bunch. It is something that it's important to monitor. But I think the Rockies will get better. So not full-blown panic, but a little bit of panic. I just don't like how many Rockies are leading spring training or in the top half of spring training in strikeouts. Lux Ace asks, how about our home runs, though? That is for you to discover by subscribing to the Rockies Pitch newsletter, and you can check out what she wrote about there as well. So, because she did an incredible amount of looking into a lot of the stuff there. So I got to get it so you all can go and maybe I can, here, let's see if I click on it. I'll drop a link here and into the chat. And if you all are interested, you just put your email in there. You get the email sent to you. It's super great. It's really, really good. It's a wonderful newsletter. But folks, it's weekend time. Enjoy your weekend. Locked On Rockies is going to wrap up for today. Back in action next week, bringing you more Rockies fun live here on the Locked On Rockies podcast here on YouTube, where you can be part of the live chat, just like Lux Ace, Adrian Ortega, and Leandro. You can also find us on your favorite streaming service, free, of course. And we're proud to be part on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And so we are available whenever you need us. You can listen to us, tune in, hang out. And now that you made us your first listen of the day, why don't you go check out the one and only Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast so you can win your league. You can also stay up to date with all things Colorado sports with the Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Buffs podcasts Folks, enjoy some World Baseball Classic. And until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.